We should place the large gift baskets right here by the entrance.
Yes, that maximizes visibility.
And confirm the red packets
Are in stock.
The next morning, soft sunlight streamed into the small room, gently covering the newly finished wedding bed in a warm glow. Ly Tu Diem softly ran her fingers over the small heart carved into the headboard and smiled with quiet happiness. From outside, the sound of a motorbike engine broke the silence. The newly purchased red Honda was parked right in front of the door. Toan stepped inside with a warm smile. "Today, I'm taking you to buy the rest of the things we need for the wedding." Her eyes instantly lit up. Ly Tu Diem stepped into the yard and gently sat on the red motorbike. Toan carefully placed the helmet on her before starting the engine. The peaceful village road stretched out before them. She softly wrapped her arms around his waist. The journey began, filled with excitement for the special day that was drawing near. When they arrived in town, the first place they visited was the largest bedding and curtain shop in the market. Inside, the soft lighting reflected beautifully on the neatly arranged bedsheet sets. Ly Tu Diem slowly walked between the rows, her fingers lightly brushing across the soft fabrics. She stopped in front of a cream-white bedsheet set embroidered with delicate little flowers along the pillow edges. Her eyes sparkled. "What do you think? Is this one beautiful?" Toan stepped closer, bent down to feel the fabric, and nodded. "It's beautiful, and it matches the bed we built perfectly." Hearing that, she smiled softly, warmth filling her heart. After that, they chose a light cream curtain set so that when the sunlight entered the room, it would create a soft and cozy feeling. Ly Tu Diem also carefully picked out 2 matching couple pillows. These small items slowly made the wedding room they had imagined together feel more real than ever. After leaving the bedding store, the two of them continued to a small decoration shop in town. The shop was not large, but it felt warm and inviting, filled with photo frames, bedside lamps, flower vases, and golden fairy lights. Ly Tu Diem stopped in front of an elegant clear glass vase. She gently picked it up and admired it. Meanwhile, Toan was drawn to a heart-shaped bedside lamp that gave off a warm golden glow. He turned it on and smiled at her. "This would look beautiful beside the bed at night." She nodded, her smile full of happiness. Besides that, they also chose a photo frame for their future wedding picture, a small tablecloth, and a few delicate decorative items for the room. After leaving the decoration shop, Toan did not head home right away. Instead, he suddenly stopped in front of a famous wedding clothing store in town. Ly Tu Diem looked up at the sign, then turned to him with surprise in her eyes. "Why did you bring me here?" Toan smiled gently. "Today, we're choosing our outfits for the big day." At once, her eyes sparkled with excitement and nervous anticipation. Inside the shop, warm golden lights shone upon rows of pure white wedding dresses. Beside them were elegant black suits, red embroidered traditional dresses, and various wedding accessories. Ly Tu Diem slowly walked between the gowns, her fingers lightly touching the soft fabric. She stopped in front of a simple yet elegant white dress, with delicate lace sleeves and a graceful flowing skirt. Toan looked at her and said softly, "Try this one. I think it would suit you perfectly." A little while later, the fitting room curtain opened. Ly Tu Diem stepped out in the white wedding dress. Her long hair fell softly behind her shoulders, and the hem of the dress gently touched the floor. Toan stood still for a few seconds, his eyes filled with emotion. "You're more beautiful than anything I ever imagined." At his words, her cheeks turned red, and her smile overflowed with happiness. After that, Toan tried on a simple yet elegant black suit. As they stood together in front of the mirror, the image of their wedding day suddenly felt so real. The atmosphere in the store became something truly special. Ly Tu Diem looked at him and whispered, "I can feel that day getting so close now." On the way home, the afternoon sunlight had begun to soften. The red motorbike rolled slowly along the familiar village road. Their shopping bags hung neatly at the front of the bike. Suddenly, one of the bags slipped loose. The glass flower vase inside tilted sharply, almost falling out. Ly Tu Diem gasped and quickly caught it. Both of them let out a sigh of relief. Toan laughed. Good thing you reacted quickly, or all our hard work from this morning would be gone. She laughed as well, still holding the bag tightly against her chest. That small incident made them more careful, but it also became a memorable moment in their wedding preparations. As soon as they got home, the two of them barely rested and immediately got to work. Toan brought out the wooden ladder and carefully hung the cream-colored curtains on the window frame. The final rays of sunlight passed through the new curtains, making the room feel softer and warmer. Inside, Ly Tu Diem spread the new bedsheet over the wooden bed they had just finished building the day before. The cream-white sheet combined beautifully with the warm brown wood. After that, Toan began hanging the golden fairy lights around the headboard. When he switched them on, the tiny lights sparkled beautifully. Ly Tu Diem stood still for a moment, deeply moved. It's even more beautiful than I imagined. When everything was nearly finished, Ly Tu Diem stepped back to admire the whole room. The wooden wedding bed. The cream-white bedsheet. The heart-shaped lamp. The small bouquet of white flowers by the window. Everything was simple, yet incredibly warm. She suddenly remembered all the difficult days they had gone through together, from buying the red motorbike to building the wedding bed, where Toan had even injured his hand while hammering the nails. Now, everything was slowly taking shape. She turned to him, her eyes glistening. Thank you. Toan gently held her hand. This is only the beginning. Those words made the small room feel even warmer. That evening, the two of them sat side by side on the new bed. The soft golden light gently illuminated their faces. Toan softly held her hand and said in a warm voice, "After the wedding, I want to renovate the whole house, and later, we'll have a beautiful little kitchen." Ly Tu Diem rested her head on his shoulder and smiled. "As long as I get to come home with you every day, that's enough for me." Outside, the night breeze gently moved through the window. Inside the small room, dreams of the future were slowly painted through the simplest words. There were only a few days left until the wedding. But for Toan and Ly Tu Diem, happiness had already begun in these preparation days. The red motorbike in the yard. The wedding bed in the room. The small flowers and warm golden lights. Everything carried the traces of love and effort. As night fell, the two of them stood at the doorway, looking at the room they had just finished decorating. Toan gently placed his arm around her shoulders. "Our big day is almost here." Ly Tu Diem nodded softly, her eyes full of hope and happiness. For her, there was no need for a luxurious wedding. As long as the person beside her was Toan, that was already enough. That afternoon, as the warm sunlight slowly faded over the quiet village, the small house of Toan and Ly Tu Diem became livelier than ever. From outside the gate, familiar voices began to call out cheerfully. Several neighbors from the village had come over to visit after hearing that the wedding day was only a few days away. An elderly aunt from next door carried a small basket of fresh fruit in her hands, while another family brought a bouquet of bright yellow flowers picked from their garden. The once quiet yard was soon filled with warm laughter and joyful conversation. Ly Tu Diem quickly stepped outside with a bright smile, gently welcoming everyone in. Toan moved extra chairs into the room and poured tea for the guests. Everyone admired the newly decorated room. The cream curtains, the warm fairy lights, and the wooden wedding bed immediately caught their attention. One of the neighbors smiled warmly and said, "You two have made this place feel so full of love." Those words made both of them smile with quiet pride. The room no longer felt like just a house. It truly felt like a home. As evening slowly settled in, more neighbors stopped by to offer their blessings. Some brought small gifts for the future home, a tea set, hand-embroidered towels, and even a small potted plant as a symbol of growth and happiness. An elderly man from the village gently patted Toan on the shoulder and said with a smile, "You've worked hard. Now it's time to build a happy family." Toan bowed his head respectfully, deeply touched by the kindness around him. Ly Tu Diem stood beside him, her heart full of emotion. The older women in the village gathered around her, smiling warmly as they offered heartfelt wishes for a peaceful and joyful married life. The small house was filled with voices, blessings, and laughter. For a moment, it felt as though the entire village was celebrating with them. Standing at the doorway, looking at the familiar faces around her, Ly Tu Diem softly whispered, "I never imagined our happiness would be shared by so many people." Toan gently held her hand. "Because everyone knows how much we love each other." That night, under the soft glow of the lights and the warm voices of the villagers, the coming wedding no longer felt like only their special day. It had become a celebration of love, family, and the blessings of the entire village.